You're overthinking this. Ever hear this being whispered or maybe shouted inside of your head, or perhaps a helpful or frustrated colleague or boss has shared this observation with you? Welcome to Leading Beyond the Spreadsheet, a leadership podcast for analytical leaders in engineering, finance, and technology who are ready to embrace their strengths and lead effectively at a higher level. If you're a professional that values accuracy, process, and data, and you want to enhance your people management skills to match your technical expertise, this podcast is for you. In today's episode, we are looking at insights on overthinking, why we do it, what its impact is, and what it takes to break that cycle. So, taking a quick look at why we do it. We want the perfect plan. We want flawless execution. We want that feeling of minimized or zero resistance and friction moving through. We feel that when we put a significant amount of time into that structure, into that plan, that we're going to have that path of least resistance. We have clarity. We're not fearful. We have clear expectations. It limits anxiety. There aren't unknowns, right? It's this beautiful safety blanket that we can wrap ourselves in when we feel we have mapped everything out and we know what all of the possible outcomes are. What do other people think about this? Some might say, oh, wow, they're really putting a lot and a thought of this into this and taking it very seriously. Other people might be impatient or irritated in the fact that a decision hasn't been made. There aren't results. There's no actions that are coming out of this yet. So it depends on what are the different things that we value. And getting into that is a whole nother episode. I mention it because sometimes that is the source of conflict, is that we approach things in different ways. So taking a look at overthinking and what that means is the things that drive that are that sometimes there's just so many choices. How can I possibly pick? I have no crystal ball. So when we get into that unknown risk territory, that's scary. How do I prepare for that? How do I anticipate those things? I don't like that feeling that I have when I don't know. Sometimes we want to make people happy. We want to maximize the amount of people that are happy with this decision because we don't want to deal with anything coming back to us. Again, we want everyone on board, flawless execution. Maybe we're really trying to maximize the return on investment or maximize resources within that. Again, embracing this least amount of risk, the least amount of unknowns. And the theory with all of these things is really maximizing certainty. We want to know what's going to happen. We want to know what to expect. We want to make sure that we're going to, again, get that return on investment. Maybe it's a family vacation. Right? I've seen different things where the family goes to Disney World, right? You get out, right? Sign away your wallet at the door. And people want to make sure that they get all the experiences, that they ride all the rides, that they're not, waiting in line for a significant amount of time. And so we're trying to maximize the amount of enjoyment and get the biggest bang for our buck. So we can spend a lot of time planning and laying all these things out in order to maximize that family experience. Maybe it's buying a car. Cars have different features and they have different packages. And oh man, this is the right price point, but this one doesn't have a heated steering wheel. But if I get this one over here, the steering wheel, right? We have these crazy trade-offs. As I'm sharing this, I'm thinking about in Young Sheldon, where Sheldon Cooper is trying to, figure out where to go to college. He's got this whole algorithm put together with all of the pros and cons and trying to determine that he has made the perfect choice for him. Another example of this in a much smaller way, in smaller decisions, is buying something on Amazon, like a floor fan. right? Something really insignificant. There's timers, and some have remote controls. There's all these different little options. And how quiet is too quiet? And there's 6 fans right here, and they're like almost all the same. And there's this variation of $20 from lowest to cheapest. How do I know that I'm making the right decision? These are the types of things that can drive us into this loop of overthinking. I was around 30 when I realized what all of this was costing me personally in happiness and time. I was reading Barry Schwartz's book, The Paradox of Choice. And the thing that was so mind-blowing for me is, it awakened me to how much time, how much impact this cycle of overthinking and indecision had on my happiness, on my effectiveness. And is it really truly that when we're looking for stuff, is one really truly that much better than another, that it warrants all that work in order to make that final decision between the two? His premise, again, Barry Schwartz, his premise in the book is that the more choice we have, the less happy we are. And this really comes around to this point, is that because we have so much choice, if we make the wrong choice, then it's our fault. There was a study about jam that he cites in the book, and they did studies where they would set out all the jam. And in one situation, they had 24 jams. In one situation, they had 6. Now, if you're like me and there's like 24 jams, I'm seeing this from across the store. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere near that because everybody's going to be lined up trying jam. Just avoid it at all costs. Back to the story. What they found is that when there were 24 choices, people bought significantly less jam. There were too many choices. People could not make a decision, and so they bought less. So we can become paralyzed when there are too many options out there. It's just easier to walk away than have to make that decision. Me personally, I love it when there's a decision and there's 3 choices tops. It's really easy, right? Yes or no, A or B type of a thing. In multiple choice tests, multiple choice questions, sometimes the first thing I do is I go through and I eliminate the answer that is definitely not the correct answer. So thinking about this, I feel like the best example is the optometrist. Going to the optometrist is my dream and a nightmare. I wish every decision could be made like going to the optometrist without the little puff of air in your eyes. I love when they bring the refractor out and they say A or B. Which one's more clear, A or B? And I just have to go through. I just have to make A or B, 1 or 2. I love being able to get there. And then at a certain point, I can say, it's the same. It doesn't make a difference. And at the end of the exam, they hand me this beautiful prescription for the perfect pair of corrective lenses. I love that process. Presto, perfect vision, right? And it's done in 20 minutes. And then my nightmare. Then I walk out with that prescription into an ocean of frames where there are no true A or B style decisions. It yanks my brain from one end all the way over to the other. And so you can see how, again, the impact of having significant decisions to choose from. Fortunately for me, my prescription hasn't changed. I've had these glasses since 2020. Yes. So a significant contributor of all of these things is that when we have a lot of choices, sometimes that choice we make does not live up to the expectation that we wanted it to. And so if you're a perfectionist or a hyperachiever, we judge ourselves because we feel like we should have done better. We're focused on that gap, right? There's where we want to be and where we are. So that ideal versus real. And when there's that gap, we don't meet it. That's when the frustrating feelings and the judgment comes out. And then the next time we have a big decision to make, the cycle continues because now we're like, oh, remember that decision we made last time and it didn't really quite work out? I need to buckle down even more now in order to be able to make sure that I really come out with the right decision. So when you place value on achievement and you think that beating yourself up or pushing yourself is going to get there, maybe it will. My question to you is, how pleasant is that journey going to be? How happy are you going to be along the way? And in the event that you do actually get there, how long does that happiness last? Is there truly the value of pushing yourself through this overthinking in order to achieve whatever it is that happens to be? When overthinking is our attempt at preventing the self-judgment that comes, the criticism, fear of criticism from ourselves, from others, that feeling of disappointment, it becomes this safety blanket that we want to hide in order to protect ourselves. Overthinking is a really safe place because we have yet to make a decision. And until we make a decision, we can't feel, right, that fear, that judgment, all of those things that we're really trying to avoid by either crafting the perfect plan or not making that decision. And the challenge is it's not foolproof. You can still do all of that and still miss that mark of that expectation that you have. Reframing the outcomes is essential in order to free yourself from this trap of overthinking. Taking a look at how you measure success, celebrate it, how you define it. How much power do you give that inner critic? And how much of that feedback from others are you taking to heart and internalizing and reliving over and over again, or putting, right, that negative spin on it that's flavored by your inner critic? The path forward to freeing yourself from the cycle of overthinking is different for everyone. However, the starting place is the same, and it's really about the awareness of the impact that this is having on you and being inspired to make a change, to choose another path and try something different. That's it for this episode of Leading Beyond the Spreadsheet. I hope this has left you with a lot of food for thought. Be sure to share in the comments what you found to be most powerful. Hit subscribe while you're at it, and we'll see you next time.